All right.
Messing, right?
There we go.
Hmm. I think we have a problem. Let's see what's going on here.
The problem is you're just an icon. And I don't mean that in the iconic sense. I mean, you are literally just an icon right now.
Yeah, I'll change that in a second. YouTube is telling me the video is private, but email is saying I'm live. So YouTube,
Well,
what?
my phone is saying live, and my phone is showing me on the phone, so it's live.
Awesome.
I was just going to say I checked my phone too.
Um,
Because I'm a subscriber, as soon
I
as it goes, we're starting the show, my phone goes ding.
Yeah, YouTube is glitching out on me here. Sorry, everyone, if you're watching this demonstration of professional SEOs at work. But my YouTube isn't letting me see the YouTube chat. And that's so bizarre. So I am going to close that browser, go to my email. Where it says I'm now live. There we go. Thank you, YouTube, for being so quirky.
Well, it's not just YouTube. There's other platforms. don't,
Okay.
don't get me started. Don't get me started on WordPress.
And I want to remind people today that last week we couldn't get to everybody's questions. So be sure to ask them early if you didn't get your question answered last time, because we do feel bad about that. But once we get to, half an hour past the show end, we got to kind of wrap it up because everybody has to work. So try to ask your questions early, if at all possible, and we'll try to do better to get to all of them. All right. So want to remind everyone that we have Madge from Magic PR here. So if you have any questions about press releases for later in the show, feel free to ask anything you'd want to ask. And also, today's show is going to be run by Charles because he has more information about avocados that he feels the SEO industry needs to hear. So I am going to let Charles take it away.
Thank you very much, Ted. So I have two small decks. I'll call them palette cleansers. I just want to put a couple things on, follow up on a few items that we discussed last week. First one's about local volatility. So let me share my screen. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen now.
Yep, looks perfect.
So we had some questions last week. Actually, let me follow the deck properly. So just to kind of recap for everybody, if you didn't see one of the last episodes, so on episode 250, Lee brought up and showed that, hey, there's some volatility going on in the local rankings that he had not witnessed before. The next week, he did a great presentation, showed the actual maps and showed how when you clicked around from moment to moment in the map, so he was running, I think it was like every minute or something like that, you saw the colors were changing and sometimes quite drastically. So I figured, we had a couple questions and I want to do a couple things. I want to try a few things. I want to try it for myself and see, is this true? Am I seeing the same thing with my tool? And that's something that's kind of to everybody. You should always, whenever you hear someone talk about something, test it yourself, try it out, look at data. If you learn anything from any of these podcasts, is testing and checking data. But a couple of the questions, Ted, you brought up a great point, which kind of blew my mind a little bit about the idea, does Google take drive time into account? when doing the closing time. So the idea being that when you're closing, you're going to get, you'll have less rankings, but does that kind of close in as you're nearing closing time? And I love that idea. That would be really cool if they did that. So I figured I wanted to try that out. I was also curious if there was volatility after closing, or is there only volatility while they're open? So I picked a business, a local burger place near us. This is a place you'll have to actually drive to. So unlike some place where you may not drive to, so maybe drive time isn't a factor, I decided I'll pick this place. So it's Lucky Chip Burger in Lebanon, New Jersey. I monitored it using Local Falcon. So this was another part of one of my tests. I want to say, is this just the tool Lee was using, or will Local Falcon have this same work where it varies? I tested every 5 minutes from 30 minutes before closing to 30 minutes after closing. The keyword was burger, and the grid, and I figured using a non-brand would be a better way to go. And the grid was a 5-mile grid, 11 by 11. So there was a point every half mile. So about 2 hours before closing, this is what it looked like Tuesday at 7:45 p.m. Obviously, the business right there in the center. I keep the hours here, so it's 11 to 9:30 p.m. On Tuesday. Down lower right-hand side is the only place where they were kind of weak, which I find interesting because I know that area, and I don't think there's any place you can get a hamburger in that area. I don't think there's even restaurants in that area, so I found that interesting. So then I started, okay, 25 minutes before closing, what does it look like? At 9:05 p.m., what does it look like? And I can see lower right-hand side is still kind of weak, and the peripheral is pretty good, actually. They're mostly ones and twos. So 20 minutes before closing, I suddenly noticed, oops, look at that 12 down there. There were some changes. So if you go back from 25 minutes before to 20 minutes before, it wasn't a lot of volatility. So my first thought was, maybe this isn't going to show me a lot of volatility other than what's down there. And then I went to the next one 15 minutes before. Again, not a lot of volatility. There is changes, but there's not, it's 2 to 3, 3 to 2. It could be a million things that could cause that. 10 minutes before. And then I noticed, if you notice in the lower right hand side, this was 12. And now that 12 disappeared. So that's volatility to me. 12 to 5 is definitely volatility. My first thought was, my goodness, Ted must be correct, that Google must be taking drive time into account, because that lower right-hand corner would have been the furthest point, would have been the hardest way to get to this location. Everything else has relatively major roads to get on. But then that disappeared. 5 minutes before, we can see a little more volatility, but not a whole heck of a lot. And then 1 minute after closing, you can see it starts kind of shutting down in certain areas. So one of the things that this confirms is there's definitely a change after closing, and it's relatively quickly. It's like 1 minute. I'm not sure how much faster you could call than 1 minute. 5 minutes after closing, I saw a little bit more. And then this was interesting. I saw more volatility after closing. So if you look, especially if you look at that lower right-hand corner, so here's 20 minutes after closing, here's 30 minutes after closing, a lot of stuff was changing around. Here's 35 minutes after closing, and I did 40 minutes after closing. So the general, where they were strong, where they were weak, stayed consistent, but the actual numbers did change. You can see some things jumped from 5s to 10s to 11s and bounced around a little bit. I was looking into some of the competitors, where people who were open late, did they replace them? And that did seem to happen, but not 100%. So for example, there's a Burger King on one of these roads that's open. I don't think it's 24 hours, but it's open it's open to like 11 or something like that. That's definitely moved up in the rankings. But there were restaurants that were closed that had moved beyond them. But so if we look at like this point 11 here, like the Burger King moved up higher, but there were restaurants that moved higher that were closer to this physical area. So even though they were closed, they started to outrank Lucky Chip because I'm assuming it's because it was proximity.
This is interesting because it's very suggestive of an open now score component. So it's like they still rank, but they lost a little piece of score that affects them on the edge.
So that's exactly what I was thinking. I put that in here, that clearly there's an impact to map rankings, hours of operations impact, but it's not the only factor. But I would call like a medium-ish factor, maybe. It wasn't a tiebreaker, but it was definitely there and part of it.
Yeah. It's not the primary ranking signal, but it's, again, it's a piece of the bigger picture. And if you're in a closer race, because like you said, there's not a lot of other burger places around that one. If it's not high competition, it might not shake things up a lot. But if it is a high competition market and there's a lot more players that are more closely scored to you, then the open now bonus could be situationally more impactful for some than others.
So when we look at this lower right-hand corner, what you can't see from the lower right-hand corner is there's this road here, and there's a relatively major, I don't say a major town here that's got a lot of restaurants. And then it would be below my screen, but if you go down past this 6, another couple miles, there's another major town. So while there's nothing right here, there are other places that are close to the north and to the south. So it's definitely weaker here. So to your point, Ted, the hours of operation seems to be, it helps you unless if you're already weak, it's not what's going to make you rank. I also think that I noticed the volatility was greater in weaker areas, or to the way you're looking at, Ted, areas of higher competition.
Yep. And it adds a new dimension to looking at a local business's, rankings. You may want to segment with an open set of ranking images as well as an after hours set of ranking images, because some businesses will have a phone or an answering service that can still schedule for the next business day. So they're technically still callable, even though they wouldn't be able to, start the work at that time. And so, if they're collecting leads after hours still, then yeah, you have to look at the rankings after hours as well.
If I had a local client, I would definitely do a initial point. This is the middle of your open hours, and this is the middle of your close hours. So midnight or 1 a.m. and then noon. And then I would use the we rank great even while you're closed as a selling point if you can get them to that point. If you can get them to that point, if there's not too much competition. But that's a
Yeah,
good point about that, about the calls. They could still be getting calls even if they're closed. And I would also look at it from a brand and visibility perspective. Like here's a burger place. What would be the value of even if they're closed, what would be the value of them showing up later at night? Just people know that they exist. Because the person that's looking for a hamburger at midnight or 1 a.m. probably would be interested in a hamburger during the day as well. They may be making other life choices, though, that could be affecting that.
yeah.
So I didn't see as much volatility as Lee saw on his tool, but I did see it during closed hours. I didn't see as much during open hours, but I did see it during closed hours. And I seem to see more volatility after it closed and in the higher competition areas. So there definitely was still volatility. I'm still not 100% sure that this is ranking volatility versus reporting or data issue, but I think it's more, I'm leaning more towards there's definitely a ranking volatility happening. The one thing I was thinking about, Lee, after I did all that is that your test, you changed every minute. I had 5 minutes in between. And if it has something to do with the API calls to Google, perhaps calling it every minute is what's causing more. I don't know. And I'm not sure I'm going to do this again because this was a bit of a pain to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
it is. You had your setup was kind of between mine. I had two different setups. I had a 13 by 13, which was 1 mile. So, it's 13 miles by 13 miles. And then when we did the zoom in, it was at 1/10 of a mile. So your map gradients are sort of between mine. You're at 5 mile and I'm looking at a 1 mile and a 13 mile. So you're kind of in there. And in the stuff that I did, regardless of the scale, you saw more volatility at the periphery than at the center.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so those things were consistent. What is intriguing, when you sit there and say, I'm not sure whether it's a ranking issue or an API issue. we hadn't seen this previously. So if it's an API issue, it means Google has changed something in the API, and that would affect a lot of rank trackers and a lot of other SEO tools as well. So
for sure, something definitely changed. And if you're sending ranking reports to clients, you need to be aware of this, because you could wake up one day in a panic thinking you've suddenly lost all these rankings when just volatility.
Yeah, wait 5 minutes.
yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, if you don't like your rankings, just wait a minute.
It'd be back. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Do we want to open for any questions about this before we move on, or would you like me just to crack on?
Let me check and see. Where did I put the questions here? They're hidden by my Zoom window. There we go. All right. Let's see. I see lots of questions starting here. Oh, here's one from Eric. If you take reservations 24 hours a day, but only provide service a few days a week and specific times, can you justify being open 24 hours since you're always open for reservations? Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I actually don't know enough about that use case. I think, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I should go look at the rules and in the Google business profiles about what you can and can't do, see if there's anything in there about that. But yeah, I was wondering, could you call yourself 24 hours if you hired an after hours answering service? That would be an interesting thing to investigate, but I'm just not sure if that's allowable or not. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I think, the big takeaway from all this, the thing we're trying to say is something has changed. There's some volatility there. We don't know the reasons why. And that's for standard cases. So edge cases like, what if you take reservations 24, but you're only, providing service? Those are edge cases. We know even less about those than we know about, the mainstream cases. So all good questions, but, we don't have a lot of answers as to, why and how to deal with it and, what you can do to impact it. We just don't have those.
Yeah, but great question.
Is there a button or a checkbox in the GBP to say like 24-hour reservations, or basically let Google know that you have a phone number that's 24 hours?
I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah,
Honey has a good. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, she asked, how do you handle business that have office hours but offer emergency services? You do that with schema or adjusting your hours in GBP? Don't know.
I mean, personally, I would make the case that if I'm a plumber and you can call me 24 hours and get help 24 hours, that's a 24-hour operation in my mind. That's
yeah.
Google may not agree, but in my mind, that's a 24-hour operation.
Yeah. The problem, I mean, as Honey points out, she goes, if the problem is if somebody shows up to your office and nobody's there, then can they leave a review? Charles wasn't there when I needed him. It's like, well, you didn't need Charles at his office. You needed him at your, in your bathroom to fix the problem.
Those are all good questions.
Yeah.
The business being open doesn't necessarily guarantee Charles is present. So, let's see. Arnian Media, Derek, he asks, did the amount of change differ within a specified time frame of closing? And so I believe what Charles saw was there wasn't something that looked like a lead up to the closing. It was the actual closing time that had the dramatic effect. Is that correct, Charles?
Correct. So I'll move a little faster through the slide so you can see the numbers change. Sorry, the box wiggles a little bit. I tried to stop that from happening. So this is 1 minute after closing. And I'm going to do like it's going to be like every 5 minutes. So here's 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before, 20 minutes before, 25 minutes before, so and almost 2 hours before. So it didn't really, it's not as though it closed up or anything like that. You do see a lot of bouncing in that lower right-hand side, but again, that's because that point is stuck between two high competition zones, and I think that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
That's all residential area down there. I know that's all cow pastures and things. So so yeah, no, there was no close up, and that was really my primary question, because that's something that Ted brought up last week. And again, like I said, it blew my mind because it never even occurred to me that Google would do that, but they certainly could. It could calculate that. But they do not seem to take drive time into account. That's also why I picked this location, because it's a location that you physically go to. It has physical hours set up. So I figured that would be a good one to use as opposed to like accountant or lawyer's office.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Nice work, sir.
Eric Schwartzman goes on to say that restaurants use hours when diners can sit down and dine in. Otherwise, you can use takeout hours, or drive-through hours or delivery hours. So there's kind of a precedent for different hours of operation for restaurants. And so he thinks that reservation hours and answering service hours probably don't qualify, because why wouldn't there be a checkbox for them? And so that's an interesting addition to the thought experiment on that. But yeah, we'd have to actually see what's in the rules. Can you extend your primary hours if you are still answering the phone? And so that's an interesting case. All right. So Charles, you had one more set of slides for us, a revisit to the avocados. So let us know when you're ready.
I am all ready. This is avocados, Google versus avocados part 2. I'm going to continue down the avocado rabbit hole, and I'm not doing any more after this. So guys, don't worry, you're not going to hear any more about avocados from me. But the question last week was, what if we had AI produce a picture of an avocado and then pose it to Google Vision AI and see does it have any better ability to recognize the avocado? Which I thought that was a cool idea, because you would imagine that while they're trained in different systems, I would imagine that AI kind of quote unquote thinks the same. So this is going to be relatively straightforward. We're going to play a little game, avocado or not avocado. The prompt is on the right. So this is the exact prompt I put into AI. I just used the OpenAI, ChatGPT OpenAI. So I didn't do Midjourney or anything like that. I just said, let me keep it real simple. So the prompt was create a photorealistic image of a whole avocado. And of course, the first thing it did is it gave me 2 avocados, and I don't even see the whole thing. So another thing about prompts here. So avocado or not avocado? How do you want to guess, Ted and Lee?
I'm going to guess avocado.
I'm going to say no. It looks plasticky to me.
It did come out looking kind of plastic, and I told it photorealistic.
Yeah.
Avocado. I assumed it wasn't going to work because the full avocado was not in the picture. But Google saw this as an avocado. The Google Vision AI saw this as an avocado. So one AI created it, another AI evaluated it. All right, so I did another one, create a photo. Actually, it gave me 2 pictures. That's right. When I did, it gave me 2 different pictures. So the same prompt, this was the second picture it gave me, create a photorealistic image of a whole avocado. Avocado or not avocado?
See, this one is more interesting to me because I do get a strong sense of lime.
Mm-hmm.
So this one I'm more 50-50 about, but I think it'll be avocado, but there might be also some clues for lime in the mix too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ted on this one. I'm also gonna say, with all this avocado lime stuff, I want some guac and a margarita right now. That's just where I am.
not an avocado.
Not.
It thought it was a ball. I got a lot of, as I went through the list, you'll see there mixing bowl, which I'm not sure how it thought that, but yeah, oval, circle, ball. It did not know it was. It did say fruit.
It does look like a deflated green dodgeball.
A little bit. And that's what, and Google Vision. So Ted, you think just like Google Vision AI, you both thought it was a ball. All right. Create a photorealistic image of an avocado half. Avocado or not avocado?
I think that's avocado.
I'm gonna say no. You know, the little flecks and stuff like that make it look, you know, weird, and you know the skin is a little alligator-ish. Oh, honey's on team avocado.
Shoot. Wait a minute. I just clicked something wrong. I'm sorry. I got to stop sharing for 2 seconds because I don't want anyone to see.
You know what? Those news guys are always killing the suspense. You know, is it avocado or not? We'll tell you when we get back from these commercials.
Back after this commercial break. Exactly. Wait, why is it doing that? All right. So once again, I'm adhering to the strict professionalism that is SEO Fight Club. All right, sorry about that.
We'd accept no less.
All right, so maybe I'll learn how to use my arrow keys this time. So, avocado or not avocado? I agree with you a little bit, Lee. I was like, what's all these little flecks of things that put in there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Answer: not avocado. It knew as a vegetable. It thought it was in the banana family or malus. And if everybody remembers from last week, a malus is like the apple family. So yeah. Not an avocado, even though I agree with you, Ted. This is clearly an avocado.
What is it about your area that it would say this is not an avocado, but it's your local food?
I don't know. And I'm going to really break your brain in a few seconds with one of the other things that I pumped out
here. It's in the banana family. This thing is in the banana family. So it's not
an avocado. It's a superfood too.
Wow.
Okay, then I said create a photorealistic image of a whole ripe avocado, because avocados get very, very dark, as you can see from this picture. And this is actually, I think, a very good picture of an avocado. They get very dark when they're ripe. That's how you know an avocado is ripe. I've learned a lot about avocados over the last 2 weeks.
I'm going with yes, partly because although the purple can throw it off, I really, really like, you know, where the stem connects there. So, you know, I'm thinking that's a good clue.
Let's see.
I'm
gonna say it's a ball again.
The ball again. Oh, I like that. Ted's calling. Oops.
Calling his shot.
Not an avocado. And you are absolutely right, Ted. It thought it was a ball and it said sphere, circle. It did not know it was an avocado, even though I think that's a very good picture of a ripe avocado.
Yeah, but it's clear that there's a competition going on between avocado and deflated ball.
You know, I'm thinking Ted paid for the answer key ahead of time, because that
was. Well, I was wrong the first time it was ball. I said it was going to be avocado, but I learned from it, and so.
So you're an adaptive Ted? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's Ted AI.
I was trained by the training set.
So I tried this one. I said, create a photorealistic image of a whole ripe avocado half. So this is pretty much the same prompt I did before, but now I said a whole ripe avocado half. I was kind of curious if I put whole and half in there, what would it do? I was actually hoping it would give me a whole one in the background and a ripe one in the foreground, but it didn't do that. So avocado or not an avocado?
Avocado.
Yeah, I hate to agree with Ted, but yeah, this
one was an avocado. And why this one was an avocado and this one was not an avocado, I don't know, because I don't see a difference in these two pictures.
That's clearly a banana.
Not an yeah, that could be the banana family, which I'm not sure if an avocado is in the banana family or not. Anyone out there knows.
No, but actually go back to that first one, the banana family. If you look at the yellowishness there, that almost looks like the skin of a banana. Whereas the other one is a little more on the green side.
Yeah, there is more green. And it doesn't have the weird dots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still has the alligator skin. And when you look at the skin on the exterior, that's not ripe, because it should be like a dark, almost a purple color. It basically gave me the same pictures I got before, but this time it said, yep, this is 60% sure that this was an avocado. So where does that leave us? I'm not sure.
Not in the same plant.
Well, we learned something about avocados.
Oh yes, avocados and bananas are not in the same
They're
plant
not in the
family.
same plant family. Okay. And I saw someone in our chat said avocado is a berry, which
Yep.
I'll take that. It's okay. So where does this leave us? Honestly, I'm not sure where this leaves us. I did this more for kind of just for fun. Maybe Google Vision AI is still learning, broken, not quite right. I know the rules, avocados, it's a weird fruit. It's shaped weird. It's not real consistent. The texture is inconsistent. The coloring can be inconsistent. So I think that's part of the problem. It's one of these vague things. AI has no trouble making a very good picture of an avocado, but the Google Vision AI doesn't seem to be real good at identifying avocados. And I think it really boils us down. I think these last two decks really are about the same. That's why I did this one second. Is just remember the ABCs of Fight Club. Always be curious. Test, test, test. Look at data, because nobody. There's a great example where we didn't know what was going on, other than Ted. Ted clued in on. He figured out Google Vision AI pretty quickly, so he understood what Google understands. But those of us mere mortals, we don't learn as quickly. So there. And there will be no more avocados. I'm done with avocados.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about avocados anymore.
please don't email asking if your photo is an avocado. I don't have time for that. All right.
I'm sorry. One small item for those of you that remember from last week. I still haven't forgotten about this. I just haven't gotten time to dig into this one. This was a picture I found online where when I put it into Google Vision AI, it had a landmark of a museum in Germany for these two avocados. I haven't been able to replicate. I haven't been able to figure out what's going on here, nor have I been able to replicate. But honestly, I haven't spent much time on it. So that's it. Now I'm done.
So I'm going to tease it. Next week, Charles brings his slide deck on kumquats. So stay tuned.
All right. First question. Do you think optimizing subheadings with related keywords impacts ranking? I think it depends on what the related keywords are. So if they're very closely topically related, I think there's a good chance it could impact your relevancy for a term. But if it's like the related keywords out of search, out of the Google search results, those related searches, so kind of a different thing than related keywords potentially, those related searches could be different topically, and so they could drift you. It doesn't mean they're not beneficial, though, because it could expand your keyword reach and get you more, targeted leads, even though they're related searches instead of related terms. Yeah, I hate to say it. I think that it depends. The person asking the question goes on to say, oftentimes I see that ranking URLs have much simpler subheading structure. And oftentimes when I find a page that's having difficulty ranking and I kind of see they went the related search route, one of the things I often try first is narrowing the topical focus. I take away the things that might be off topic and I kind of double down on the target keyword tuning. And so in the sense, could that impact rankings? Well, yes, it sometimes does, but in the negative sense is what I largely see. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, so the basis of the question and the ability to answer it is looking at the word related, and related when discussing SEO is a slippery term. There are a lot of prompts, there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of methods for pulling, related keywords, entities, LSI terms, etc. But what nobody has done is prove that those methods or those ways of extracting those terms is how Google looks at it. It's always been, oh, these look good, we're going to put them in. Generally speaking, we get rankings improvements from them. So, related, it's hard to know from Google's standpoint, and we can look at it and agree that something's related. And if Google doesn't agree, it doesn't matter. And we've seen that when people put related keyword and entity variations in those headers, that if they are indeed related and you're missing that factor, yeah, you'll get a bump. But if you put it in there and it's not related, you can actually, push your page further down in the SERPs from doing those sort of things. So yeah, it absolutely is one of those it depends situations.
And I think we saw from the whole avocado thing that even though one AI said this was something, Google may not agree. So there seems to be a lot of folks that'll go to ChatGPT and say, give me the related keyword terms or the LSI terms for this keyword. You may not be getting the right terms, or at least you may not be getting the terms that Google wants to see.
There's two good points with that one, Charles. The one is, we had some people that took those avocado pictures and uploaded it to AI and said, what's this? And AI said, that's an avocado, when Google said it didn't. So you can have different systems give you different answers. And one thing which we don't know is whether the Google Vision implementation of recognition of an image is what Google is actually using in production for recognition of that stuff as well. So there's a lot of I don't knows before we sit there and say, oh, if you check it this way and this is the case, you're safe, you're not safe, it's going to help, it's not going to help. There's a lot more, testing and analysis that would be needed before you got to that level.
He also asks, can you please suggest where I can get a Canadian press release service? And I know if you're international, press releases feel very difficult for this reason, especially if your business operates in a language other than English. And what I often recommend to people that are in that situation is do the US English press release, but put your alternative language version links in the press release. So let people know that you have this, for this release in French, click here, and then, do a better anchor text than the click here. For this press release in Spanish, use this link. And that's a white hat way of getting multiple links to your website in the press release, but also linking to the version of the language that you're actually doing business in. So I think it's totally okay to have an announcement in Canada. Most press release services let you put in a location. And when it's the actual news industry, they tend to pick up stories that are all over the place depending upon the news outlet. So if it's a place like CNN, they don't mind if the story's out of Zimbabwe. But if it's the local TV station, they might be looking a bit closer to home. But yeah, you can still use those services, just specify your location as being in Canada and relevant to Canadian people in the area. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I think, if Madge is here, I don't know if he's
Oh yeah.
on the call and stuff like that. This is not a setup for Madge, but because I don't know if he offers international press releases, but that's his area of expertise. So Madge, if you're available to jump in and counsel, that would be great. If not, I don't have anything to add to it, because what I would do personally, if I needed that, is I would reach out to one of the the PR services that that I use, and I would talk to like Madge and say, hey, I need something in Canada. Do you offer that, or can you point me in a direction?
So are you with us, Madge?
Apparently not.
Okay, well,
So
we'll try.
Majestic PR is the worst PR service.
we'll try to get his opinion if he hops back on.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. How do you Honey's asking, how do you handle business that have office hours but offer emergency services and
Yeah,
ski?
we grabbed that one earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that earlier. Let's see. Let's see. The next one is from John Power. If you have poor HTML syntax, and that can be problematic, there's a way, there are numerous ways you get away with it, and then there's a few ways where it's kind of a breaking situation. Could that prevent Google from crawling and processing a page's content? Uh, there's Technically it can, but fortunately, there's a library that exists that attempts to fix that on your behalf. And we know this is true because Chrome is open source. You can see the source code for Chrome, and it uses a library called Tidy that will make a best effort to fix broken syntax. And this is really cool because Googlebot is a forked version of Chrome. So technically, if you're wondering, how would Googlebot handle something like this in my HTML? You can make that on a local file on your computer, open it up in Chrome, and compare the view source to the inspector of the source, and that will show you how Tidy remedied the problem. And if Tidy remedies the problem, Googlebot only sees the post-Tidy version of the code. So if you have an error in your HTML, what ends up being visible in search or findable in search is the Tidy repaired version. And we've seen that through testing. We've seen the tidy fix appear in the title tag and the tidy fix appear in the meta description. And you can see that in the Google results that it's the post tidy version that gets indexed. And so, yeah, by and large, small things, forgetting to close a div tag, it may mess up your formatting visually, and that could give you issues like your clickable elements are too close together, you're not mobile friendly. So broken HTML can cause those types of blocking issues. What do you think, Lee?
No, I knew this was going to go down the tidy library thing because we've played with it and said, all right, what if I break it this way? What if I break it that way? And if you have, for example, an open div with a whole lot of other HTML tags in it, and then you uh, do a malformed close or not a close, Tidy will attempt to remedy that, and a lot of times it gets it right. But there are times when it will get it wrong. It will guess wrong as to where the close should be and screw things up for you. So yeah, it can be a problem. But one of the things, if you suspect that, there's a number of different HTML inspectors online. You can just drop your HTML in there and say, hey, you know, check it, and those things tend to be much more harsh, strict than Google is. So it's another little tip.
Eric would like us to talk a little bit about the Google antitrust news. And the news there is it only took a couple of decades, but the courts finally see Google as a monopoly. And I kind of agree with that, but I'm gonna also hedge it with I don't think they should be broken up or anything. So I think there's a truth to the fact that Google does not care about customer service and they influence industries at a whim. And, so the monopoly thing just feels like a fact to me, but the nuclear option on dealing with them, I think that should be off the table. What would probably be a much better fit is that there should probably be regulation in the area that can inflict damages to industries and damages to businesses. So the places where Google is being harmful to businesses probably needs oversight. And that's what I would hope would come out of that, is that Google cannot use the ban hammer as freely as they have been. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I looked at this a little bit, and the short answer from me is, right now they have the ruling. Next thing that comes is, sort of the recommended fines, remedies, breakups, whatever's going to happen, it comes next. And as soon as that happens, Google is going to appeal. There's no doubt about it. So, they're going to keep it tied up. So we don't even know what the Justice Department would like to seek as remedy for this monopoly situation. And I think in a number of previous Fight Club episodes, Ted, you've expressed, there's an advantage to, if not monopoly, but a large scale. There's not a lot of businesses that can just go and scan the entire web and catalog it efficiently, and you're not going to get a startup that does that. It's expensive. So you can't really break Google up in entirely, because it does have a negative impact on society if you do that, because there's no clear one. But I think from what I read, a lot of Google's practices and locking up things effectively inhibit any current competitors from even making inroads. So making inroads is not a problem. Like, there are defaults, that are on phones, default setups where Chrome is or Google is your default search engine, things like that most people never switch, whatever the default is. I was talking to Roman Barnes this morning, and he said, he was pointing out that on places where they have installed like Bing as the default app, there's an 80%, 80+% of the people never switch it. So there's an inertia to that. And, where Google has sort of blocked that out on a lot of different devices, explains their mobile dominance globally. And if you had the option when you bought an Android or an iOS phone, and it said, okay, we're setting up your phone, would you like your default search engine to be Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Alta Vista, what? Google's going to lose market share and other things are going to make inroads. So I think regardless of what happens in time, Google's going to, lose some market share to it, but I don't think they'll break it up.
Yeah, and just for some context, before Google ever existed, most websites would buy and sell links, as how a lot of websites were monetized. And it was a great system for website owners. Wouldn't you like to have a few hundred extra dollars every month, or a few $1,000 every month? If you had a popular niche site, that type of thing was very easily done. And then Google comes along and says, if you're buying and selling links, we're going to give you the ban hammer and you won't be findable. That's the type of thing that Google did to wreck the web. And that's where I think that, we need some help from regulation, so that why can't we buy and sell links? There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it was fine and done before Google was ever on the scene. So you can't just say it's just to exploit Google. That's not our fault. But we all lost something. And so I think we need that freedom back in the web. So Google should not be able to threaten to to ban you, to exile you because you need to make a little extra money to get by in a lawful way. So yeah, Google is a monopoly. I don't think they need to be broken up, but there does need to be some control on their behavior. Let's see. Let's go on. What are the best ways
Hold on a second, Ted, because we
Okay.
got Madge here now. He's woken up from his afternoon nap. As you get older, you need those sort of things. So, Madge, we had a question about. I'm looking for a Canadian press release. What would you recommend? And I kind of said, well, I would talk to somebody like you who deals in that. I don't know if Magic PR does international sort of press release things like that, but what would you recommend to somebody who is looking for country specific distribution?
If it really needs to be country specific, then yes, we can do Canadian specific PR campaign. But a lot of our clients are based across the world, and the US distribution seems to work really well, regardless where they're based, right?
Okay.
But if your client is very specific and wants only Canadian links, then yes, we can do that as well. But it'll be a bespoke package, and they'll need to get in touch with me for that.
So how would somebody get in touch with you, sir?
magicpr.com, and you can fill in the form or send an email at info@magicpr.com.
And one more comment on the antitrust thing. It's quite possible that it isn't Google's fault that they're a monopoly, because it strikes me that this is an industry that can't support a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen it since the dawn of it. A lot of people try, but it's like most people aren't willing to use two search engines. So by and large, the vast majority of people, even if another option is better, they're not willing to try something new. And so if you shut down Google, so the nuclear option, which I'm don't like. I think probably the outcome of that is Bing becomes the new monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it fixes that aspect. I think a monopoly in search is probably the natural outcome, and what you need is the regulation so that it doesn't get abused.
Yeah, I think if they came out personally, if they came out and said, okay, you can't have these sort of exclusive contracts, which basically, maintain and extend your monopoly power and make it anti-competitive, then it would fix a lot of those things. Google's going to lose some market share. Bing and others are going to gain some market share, but it doesn't mean that everybody and their brother's going to go, I'm starting a search engine, because that's a really, really expensive operation. So
and I doubt there's anything the court could do that could make Ask Jeeves be, on top or at the same level as Google. Like I don't see a remedy that can fix the natural monopoly situation of search.
yeah. And I had a friend that said to me this morning, and like it or not, for the most part, Google is better than some of the others out there. So people are going to naturally gravitate towards whatever one is better.
And I don't agree with that. I mean, you see like, 3 pages of ads above the fold on your keyword. Google is not better. I'd say at least it's situational, dependent on the keyword. There are definitely some better alternatives, but if the traffic isn't there, there's no reason to use those alternatives.
Yeah, but you know what? You're not a normal search engine user. I mean, other than, for SEO purposes, when you actually do your own searching, for a long time have used ChatGPT to do your searching.
Still do.
And I found myself the other day doing the same thing, and cursing your name, by the way, just so you know. Because I started to do a search and open up different tabs, seeing I couldn't find it. And I just said, screw this. And I opened up Perplexity, which does a great job at synthesizing that data. And it said, hey, give me this information, and it gives you that information with citations and everything else. And then if I wanted to click to the particular source documents for those things, I could. So I could get precisely what I needed quickly rather than me having to go read the top 10, 20, results, or read a few and refine my search. So
And that's probably the other thing, it's going to take 5 years for anything to actually happen in this court case because of the appeals that you mentioned.
yeah.
And by that time, who knows if, legacy search engines are the thing. There could be new AI solutions that are a better way of getting through massive amounts of websites than just seeing the top 20 or top 50 results.
Yeah, it'll all be askcharles.com by then.
Yep. All right. So let's see. Bill asks, what are the best ways to get coverage links, i.e., links for a large number of pages, not just one page? Well, I can tell you what I used to do in ecom, and I thought it worked fantastic. So in ecom, we had, you know, thousands and thousands of product pages. We had 500 product categories. And we had this issue where we were often competing with Amazon on the product level. And it was typically for unbranded products like sterling silver amethyst bracelets. So lots of products like that where there isn't a brand name in the keyword. And on those, I often found that Amazon's inner pages had zero backlinks. And because of that, I was actually able to beat most of Amazon's product pages, unbranded product pages, because I could get 25 backlinks and that would overpower whatever domain authority thing was getting to the page. And so I realized I needed to get 25 backlinks to all of my pages. So I created 25 stores, micro stores, that offered a reduced set of inventory. So they were different from the main site. They were more specialized. You might think of them as category stores. And I made those, and they would run off of the Google Merchant Center feeds. So whenever the product team added or removed or updated any products, that would update the feed, that would update the satellite category stores. And they would all complete the purchase by linking to the main site. So at that point, every time we'd launch a product, it would launch with 25 referring domains all by itself. It's the natural workflow of adding a product to the main store. And that was fabulous because that lifted all boats, and everywhere we could beat Amazon, we did beat Amazon. That was just part of how our SEO worked. So I think you'd probably would want to think in terms of strategies that are kind of more horizontal along those lines. Another way you could do it is if it's not an ecom play, think about synergy sites. The best synergy example I have is ecom, so forgive me for that. But if you're selling high-end poker tables, then think about having a website that has the poker rules and shows you how to play all the different games. And think about having a man cave blog that talks about all the cool things that are in the setting around a poker game. Talk about the competitive poker events and what's happening in those areas. And if you have enough properties like that, then those can all be advertising your high-end poker tables. Those are synergy sites, and it works very well for your rankings as well. Lee, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I loved this original thing you did when you were back in ecom and the architecture for getting 25 referring domains to each particular page. But the problem is for me and for other SEOs, so like if I'm building a bunch of sites, going and building 25 synergy or 25 sites and using sort of the solutions that you architected and engineered back in the day, it's cumbersome. And if you're doing client work and you have a bunch of different clients, building those things is cumbersome. So we came up with a different thing, and we architected the simple link tool that we built to do that particular thing, where you just upload a CSV or an Excel file of your links, the anchor text, and stuff like that, and then it builds it for you. So if people are interested in that, they can go look at witcherlabs.com and just look at the simple link tool. And if anybody wants look, they can reach out to me, and I can kind of show you how it works as well.
Yeah, and that's a great example of thinking horizontally. So instead of, category stores and merchant center feeds, you're doing cloud sites and, posts. And you could also probably, I'd imagine you could probably enhance that system if you gave it a capability to watch an RSS feed on the main site and syndicate new findings out to the cloud sites auto-magically. That would be like an amazing feature, because then you'd have a way to automate it and not have to manage it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say Lee's thing is a great option, and even closer to what I did if they add the RSS feed capability.
Yeah.
And that would be cool if it could work off of both RSS feeds and merchant center feeds. They're both simple formats. Because then it would be applicable to ecom too. Just food for thought, Lee.
I'm thinking, you got me thinking, as always.
All right. Let's see. For services like plumbing, and you have after hours support, set that sucker to 24 hours. So SEO dude is saying it's easier to apologize than it is to get permission. That is one methodology.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you think about it, I have not heard of anybody or very, very limited where people got in trouble for doing that. And it literally was that their store wasn't open, but there was also no phone number that worked, or something like that. So
yeah, it seems
I would lean more towards the forgiveness than permission strategy, given that I don't see anybody getting smacked for that.
Yeah, and it seems to me that when it comes to your hours of operation, if you're being dishonest about them, you're more likely to hurt yourself than anyone else. But who knows the mind of Google? I certainly don't. Let's see. If you have, for example, 10 important pages to target, is 10 different press releases, one to each page over the course of a year, a good idea? In a sense, what I often find for small sites, so let's say your whole site is 10 pages, you typically don't need a press release for each page. Oftentimes by the second or third press release, you'll find that you're often overpowering the other players who probably don't have a press release. And so you might find that, after two, you just, there's enough benefit being spread through your primary navigation that you're kind of good until those decay. So I would say start small, monitor the situation, do important pages first, and you might be surprised at how little you actually need. And I don't think I've seen a case where a website required a distinct press release for all pages. I just haven't seen an example of that yet. Have you, Lee?
No, I mean I've seen examples where you can use, say, on a 50-page site, you can hit 10 of those pages with a press release. I've seen situations like that because they are a strong tool in the arsenal. But rarely for smaller sites, especially rarely 2, 3 tends to handle it, and then maybe one on an annual for just sort of a maintenance thing. Madge does this. He took off, bastard. So, that's what my 2 cents would be on that. You don't need to have that much power, across a small site.
He goes on to ask, can you have too many press releases in a short time frame? Yes, totally
Yes.
possible. So you want to kind of use them sparingly if they're on the same domain. And the distribution websites don't like it if you're spamming them. So they don't want to see you too often either. So you got to be a little bit strategic with it. What
Yeah,
is
I'm aware of some testing that suggested that beyond 3 in a month, there was, no additional benefit. So, without getting you penalized, you're just then wasting your money. So, 1 or 2 a month would be sort of a nice, safe level.
Let's see. What is the best practice for e-commerce category paginations? Um, so what I recommend for pagination is page 2 should canonicalize to page 2. Rel next prev is still an accepted practice. I prefer having pagination over infinite scroll. There are just too many ways for that to go sideways in SEO. And you want to be sure that your categories are getting completely crawled. And you can see that in the web logs if you have pagination links. You can search for the last page and make sure that it got seen by a Google bot. So there's a lot of benefits to pagination links. Additionally, you can kind of govern the amount of SEO content that's on the page. One of my favorite hacks is adding in a short description field into products. And you can display the short description like on hover. So you hover the product token, you see the short description text that's 1 or 2 keyword rich sentences. Now you can play with the number of products per page. And so if you go to 50 products per page, you have 100 keyword rich sentences on that otherwise thin category page. And so if you needed to dial up or down the SEO numbers, now you can do that with number of products per page. How easy is that? I mean, that's awesome. And I've seen that have a dramatic effect on people's category rankings. So that's a great strategy. What I would not do, the thing that is worst of all, is when you canonicalize all category pages to page 1. That's just teaching Google that you lie about canonical URLs and you don't understand them, and your site shouldn't be trusted regarding them. So don't do that. That's a mistake every time it's done. What do you think, Lee?
I have nothing to add. That's, not my area of expertise. And, you spent what, 2 decades in that space. So I would go with what Ted said.
Yep. Um, let's see. And regarding cannibalization, Usually that's a priority problem with an online retailer. So, for example, they spend way too much time tuning the homepage, and then they shift their priority to categories because that's the next biggest priority for like all online retailers. And that's often the mistake regarding cannibalization, because then you start getting category pages cannibalizing all the products. And why that's happening is you haven't tuned your product pages because they're the largest number, lowest value in your mind. So they are completely untuned, and now your category and homepage cannibalize all products or most products. So what you actually need to do to fix that is you need to go SEO your product pages so that they can rank for their terms. Then you SEO the categories, and they're less likely to cannibalize because you actually have some weight on those products. But, think about it as a priority problem and you'll probably see the issue.
Mm.
Let's see. Could you please discuss about implementing modern HTML standards for web pages, like not having too many divs, etc.? Well, I'll be honest, I don't think it matters to Google. WordPress is so prevalent, and Shopify is so messy, and you would break the web if you said those are too messy to be ranked in Google. And so because of that, I don't think there's an SEO reason to neaten it up, at least not a great one. Now, if it's making your website slow and difficult to manage, well, the page speed could be an SEO reason, but it would have to be pretty extreme to be the reason. More likely, it's going to be an internal issue with your business, the cost of maintaining the code, the cost of updating things, the cost of firefighting when there are issues. Just being able to hire new people and have them understand what the heck is going on. Those are internal reasons you would want to simplify your operation, but they're generally not SEO reasons. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I agree. The thing about, WordPress and Shopify being so prevalent and so messy is true. If we go back to, one of the questions we had earlier about, broken HTML and, how's that handled over time. I've tested lots and lots of different pages of mine across different, WordPress sites and installations and other types of installations. And almost all of them have code errors of some sort, some, HTML errors of some sort. So Google has had to deal with the problem of crappy pages, imperfect pages forever. So, the implementation of a standard would kill the web. I agree with that 100%. So, make it the best that you can for you without worrying so much about what Google thinks, because Google's just got a deal.
Let's see. SEO Dude asks, hey, Ted, is the yoga pants challenge still on? Yes, there has not been a winner to date on that. And so what that was, if you're new to the show, is when I was in ecom, there was a keyword I couldn't win because I could rank for 20, 40 other keywords in the time it was going to take me to rank this one keyword. So I was commission based, so ranking 20 or 40 other keywords in that amount of time was better income for me personally. And so I couldn't justify working on this term, and I was mad about it. And the term was yoga pants. It was abnormally difficult. And what The challenge is, and I'll be honest, it's kind of a Tom Sawyer paint the fence trick I'm pulling with it, is I want to see someone break into the top 100 without over investing. We can all spend a fortune on something and get there. So if I look at it and I see you piled on, 1 million authority backlinks to break into the top 100, it's not going to count, because I want you, for mere mortals, to be able to break into the top 100 with largely, a strategy that everyone could do. So is your SEO good enough to break into top 100 for what I consider a tough keyword? So if you're trying to collect on it, and you're saying you're page one, I want to see what you invested on that off page. And, yeah, if you did it, then let's take a look. So you're claiming you're on page one for yoga pants. Um, let's see if I can spot it. A lot of ads. I don't know that I'm seeing it in my location. And I believe you're international, so I also wonder if you might be winning in Australia, where the contest was in US. So yeah, ping me out of band, and oh, you're claiming you'll get there by October 1st.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't read the full comment, my bad. Um, all right, you didn't start yet, but yeah, and what the prize is, if you manage to win this, if you do the thing that I couldn't do decades ago, and I haven't tried ever since, so it's not a current thing. I endorse you publicly as the ecom SEO supreme, if you can do it, but you have to do it in a way where anyone could do it similarly. It couldn't be a huge investment of off-page authority. No, the prize remains the same. It's supposed to be something that we all can learn from, for how to break into very tough keywords. And that's the goal, because the goal is, if you can figure out a non-million-dollar solution to this problem, then that's something that the world would want to know. Of course, you could also turn that into your own course and make $1 million. So that's why it's the Tom Sawyer painting the fence type of trickery. We're trying to get something high value out of you that you could probably make a fortune for, but it's for the public good. So hopefully that appeals to you too. So food for thought. What do you think about the contest, Lee?
Yeah, I like it. I took one run at it with a particular idea, again, trying to do minimum viable. It didn't break in the way that I'd hoped with that, but I have some other things. I just haven't had time to go back and push it in. But yeah, it's a valuable piece, because there are some interesting competitors in that that particular space, beyond just your standard Cura Grace, Lululemon, Fabletics sort of brands. There's some other blogs that kind of specialize in sort of those spaces, and they're decent competitors.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of people attempting to do it, but the outcome seems to always be the same. There always seems to be better money to chase. So it's an interesting litmus test on someone's SEO.
Well, here's the thing. Most yoga pants are fairly inexpensive, and so the margins on them are going to be fairly low. So, like you said, you can spend all the time and energy and get up there and go broke doing so.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think if you can do it cost effectively, that's the impressive part. All right. So with that, we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.